If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be standing on the rooftop of a downtown hotel, drinking overpriced whiskey while watching my life quietly unspool like a thread pulled from a cheap sweater, I'd have laughed. I'd have laughed hard. Back then, I had it all. Or at least, I thought I did. Her name was Elise. My wife. My ride or die. My partner in crime. My best friend. She had this laugh that could break tension in a funeral home, and a way of looking at you like you were the only man who'd ever existed. And me? I was the loyal, steady type. I believed in love, in working through things, in the sanctity of vows. You know, all that quaint nonsense people roll their eyes at now. I wasn't flashy, just dependable. An oak tree with a mortgage and a Costco membership. We'd been married 7 years. Not a lucky number, as it turns out. The night everything started rolling downhill wore a tuxedo and a forced smile. Elise had just gotten promoted, regional sales director, something with a nice title and an even nicer raise. We were at the rooftop of the Riverton Hotel, celebrating her win. The view was gorgeous. City lights, champagne flutes, and a skyline that promised possibility. And Elise? She glowed. Red dress. Hair pinned back like she was auditioning to ruin a man's life. Everyone was congratulating her, patting her on the back like she'd just won an Oscar for Best Career Ascension while ignoring her husband's texts. I stuck close by, sipping my drink, making small talk with people whose names I already forgot. I kept noticing how often Elise's eyes darted across the crowd, like she was searching for someone. Eventually, I leaned over and said, "Big night, huh?" She smiled, polite, distracted. "Huge. I still can't believe it." "You earned it," I replied, touching her back lightly. "Thanks," she said, then excused herself to get more wine. She didn't come back for 20 minutes. Now, here's the thing. I wasn't suspicious. Not then. Not really. I chalked it up to the usual party chaos. People to thank, egos to stroke. I mingled. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I even got roped into a conversation about golf, which is where hope goes to die. And then I met him. Tall guy. Polished. That kind of effortless arrogance people confuse for charisma. His name was Carter. Apparently, he worked at corporate. Elise's boss's boss's boss. We shook hands. His grip was firm. A little too firm. "You must be Ryan," he said, with the smirk of a man who already knew everything he needed to about me. "Elise talks about you all the time." "Does she?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "Oh yeah," he said, sipping his scotch. "Always says you're the rock. The dependable one." He meant it as a compliment, but it landed like a gut punch. "Funny," I said, smiling through it. "She never mentioned you." His smirk grew. "Well, I guess I'm new to the inner circle." Then Elise returned, cheeks flushed, wine in hand. She didn't introduce us. She didn't have to. The tension introduced itself. I filed that look they exchanged away in the part of my brain reserved for things I'll pretend not to notice until I can't anymore. But I didn't confront her that night. No, that would come later. After the real storm had gathered. After I'd connected dots I didn't want to see. This was just the first drip. The faucet hadn't burst yet. But it would. And when it did, well, let's just say forgiveness wasn't the path I chose. The weeks that followed the promotion party were quieter than I expected. Not quiet in a peaceful, birds-chirping way. No, this was the kind of quiet that settles in before a storm. The kind where even the dog starts acting weird and you swear the walls are holding secrets. Elise was busy. That's how she put it. Meetings, business trips, late-night calls that needed to be taken downstairs because apparently the sound of spreadsheets being discussed might ruin my beauty sleep. At first, I played the understanding husband. I cooked more, took over the laundry. I even started packing her travel bags. A little voice in my head told me I was helping her, but a louder one asked why I suddenly felt like an unpaid assistant in a marriage I thought I co-owned. Then came the perfume. She started wearing one she'd never used before, jasmine, vanilla, something floral and sweet. It was subtle but different. Elise hadn't changed her scent in 5 years. I noticed, but when I asked about it, she waved me off with a laugh. "Oh, this?" It was a gift from the company. All the directors got one. Huh. A gift. From whom? Casanova in finance. Still, I didn't say anything. Not then. But the gears had started turning. I wasn't trying to catch her in anything. I was trying to reassure myself that I was wrong. That I was paranoid. That life hadn't suddenly shifted sideways while I wasn't looking. But then came the passwords. Elise and I had never kept secrets. Shared phones, shared Netflix, shared everything. But one day I tried to check her calendar, Because I was planning a surprise dinner, and her phone was locked. New password. Elise, I said, that night over dinner, trying to keep it casual. Did you change your phone code? She looked up from her plate, eyes narrowed just enough for me to notice. Yeah. IT said we needed to update for security reasons. IT. Of course. The magical, faceless excuse factory. You could have just told me, I said. I didn't think it mattered. Then she returned to her food, like the conversation had already ended. It mattered. The cracks were widening, and I was staring right into them. But instead of confronting her, I did what any self-respecting man raised on quiet dignity and suppressed panic would do. I started noticing things. Like how she started going to the gym again. How she stopped complaining about Carter, even though she used to call him Corporate Ken. And how she smiled at her phone like it had whispered something intimate in her ear. Then came the Thursday she forgot, her work laptop at home. I don't believe in signs, but if I did, that thing lit up like a Christmas tree in July. She was already halfway to the office when I spotted it on the kitchen table. Normally, I'd have driven it to her. But this time, I opened it. She hadn't logged out. Now before you judge me, let me ask you this. If someone leaves a treasure map to a ticking bomb under your roof, are you going to ignore it? Emails, Slack messages, calendar invites. At first, it was all boring corporate stuff. Then I saw it. A message from C. Dinner again this Friday? Same spot. Missed your laugh today. My stomach sank. There were no attachments. No smoking gun photos. But I didn't need them. Not anymore. The pieces were falling into place, quietly, sickeningly, and they all spelled one word. Betrayal. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. Concrete, undeniable, emotional sledgehammer kind of proof. If this was going to end, I wasn't going to be the guy screaming in the dark while she played innocent under LED lighting. No, I was going to build the case. And when it was time to show my hand, it was going to hurt. It started with a receipt. Not the dramatic kind with lipstick on the back or scrawled love notes in cursive. Just a digital receipt. Routine, automatic, buried inside her email like it belonged there. It was for a suite. Friday night. One king bed. The name of the hotel? The Rose Lake Inn. Not exactly seedy, but not somewhere you'd host a staff meeting either. It came in at 11:42 a.m. on a Thursday. She had told me she was at a team offsite all day Friday and wouldn't be back until Saturday night. Team building, she said, which, in hindsight, wasn't a lie, just not the team I had in mind. I stared at that email like it was a confession signed in neon ink. This was no longer suspicion. This was confirmation. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just sat there. The kind of stillness that only comes when your soul takes a step back and says, I'll let you handle this, champ. The plan came together faster than I expected. I didn't rant. I didn't cry. I didn't even look at her differently that night, when she came home smelling faintly of that jasmine vanilla perfume, humming like she wasn't in the middle of detonating our marriage. Friday morning, I kissed her goodbye like nothing was wrong. Have fun at your offsite, I said. She smiled. Try not to miss me too much. That was the last time I ever believed anything that came out of her mouth. By 5:30 p.m., I was parked across the street from the Rose Lake Inn, inside my truck with a thermos of coffee and enough disbelief to fuel a full-blown midlife crisis. I didn't have to wait long. At 6:12, a silver Lexus pulled into the lot. I didn't recognize it, but I recognized him the second he stepped out. Carter, Corporate Ken himself. Same tailored coat. Same too-white smile. Same guy who shook my hand and called me the Rock. Guess he just wanted to see if he could break it. I stayed low as Elise got out of the passenger seat. She was laughing, full, carefree, like she didn't have a husband at home and a wedding band still warm on her finger. They walked in together, her hand brushing against his lower back in that absent-minded, possessive way. The kind of touch you give to someone you're used to touching. I didn't follow them. Didn't need to. The damage had already been done. My truth was in that parking lot. Walking into room 208 with a man who smelled like cologne samples and corporate betrayal. I sat in my truck for another hour, maybe two. I thought about going home, thought about keying his car, thought about storming in there like some dollar store action hero. But I didn't. Instead, I drove home. Slowly. Windows down. Just the wind and that silence again. Heavier now, like it knew it had won. When I walked into the house, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I went in the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled down the storage bin from the top shelf. Inside was everything I hadn't wanted to use. The fireproof box with our marriage documents, the backup drives with our shared photos, the manila folder I'd labeled, just in case, 3 years ago and never imagined I'd actually open. I added the printed email, the receipt. Then, in all caps, I wrote across the top of the folder. Case closed. My phone buzzed around midnight. It was a text from Elise. Long day. Exhausted. I'll call you in the morning. Love you. Love you. That's the part that stuck in my throat. I didn't reply. Instead, I slid my wedding ring off, placed it on the counter, and stared at it for a long time. This wasn't the end of our marriage, but it was the beginning of my revenge. The next morning was a masterclass in controlled performance. I brewed coffee, made eggs I had no intention of eating, and turned on the news like it was any other Saturday. The sun spilled through the windows. The dog snoozed in her usual spot by the couch. From the outside, it was domestic bliss. But inside me, something tectonic had shifted. I wasn't broken. I wasn't devastated. I was calculating. It's funny how betrayal has a way of clarifying everything. Things that once seemed foggy, like how long she'd been distant, or why her texts had started sounding more like status updates than affection, were suddenly illuminated under the harsh fluorescent light of truth. At 10:47 a.m., she texted. Morning. Breakfast with the team. Heading home soon. See you this afternoon. Red heart. The heart. A cherry on top of her lie. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the file again. I'd slept with it under my pillow like a paranoid secret agent. But I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was prepared. I printed a copy of the hotel receipt and slipped it into a manila envelope. Then I added the text from C and a copy of her company's travel policy. That last one wasn't necessary, but it made me feel better knowing I was building something airtight. This wasn't about rage. It was about leverage. I didn't plan to confront her the second she walked through the door. No, that's what she'd expect. She was bracing for drama. I wanted something worse. Silence. When she came home around 1 p.m., still wearing that same perfume, I met her at the door with a kiss on the cheek and a smile I had to practice in the mirror 10 times to perfect. Good trip? I asked. She blinked, a little off balance. Yeah, really productive. We did a whole workshop on leadership. Super intense. Glad you're home, I said, stepping aside so she could enter the lie she'd turned into our living room. I'm gonna shower, she called from the stairs. Of course you are, I thought. Rinse the guilt off before lunch. I went back to the kitchen and opened my laptop. Over the next hour, I made 4 key moves. I contacted a friend in IT, a guy who owed me a favor from years back when I helped him dodge a lawsuit with some clever copywriting. I asked for help digging up archived emails from Elise's corporate account. Nothing shady, just a digital archaeology expedition. He didn't ask why. Good man. I called a private investigator. Not because I needed more proof, I had enough. But because I wanted timestamps. Photos. Context. Not for me. For her boss. Her real boss. The one who signed the checks and didn't know his directors were mixing pleasure with company business. I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney. No commitment. Just intel. Because if there's one thing Elise taught me this year, it's that knowledge isn't just power, it's insurance. I created a new email folder. Titled simply, The Exit Plan. Around 3 p.m., Elise reemerged in leggings and a hoodie, hair wet, face clean of makeup. She looked younger like that. Innocent. That was the mask. And I was finally done believing in masks. Want to watch something? She asked, curling up on the couch like it was any other weekend. Sure, I said, sitting beside her. We watched a movie. I couldn't tell you which one. I remember there were car chases, explosions, things falling apart in slow motion. It felt appropriate. Later that night, over dinner, I tested the waters. You ever think we become too comfortable? I asked. She looked up from her plate, surprised. What do you mean? I don't know, I shrugged. Routine. Predictability. Feels like we're coasting. She smiled. You say that like it's a bad thing. I thought we liked our boring little life. Sure, I said, smiling back. But sometimes boring is just a synonym for asleep. She tilted her head, confused. You okay? Yeah, just thinking a lot lately. About the future. She didn't press. And I didn't elaborate. That's how you build pressure in a kettle. Slowly. Quietly. Until the whistle screams. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, counting down the days. Because this wasn't about catching her anymore. This was about timing. Let her think the performance worked. Let her think the lies were holding. She wanted to play house with Carter? Fine. I was going to burn it down, room by room, with documentation, dignity, and the kind of calm that scares people more than yelling ever could. And when I was done, she wouldn't even see it coming. Monday came like it always did. Early, gray, and eager to disappoint. Elise left for work at 7:15 sharp, same as usual. Her goodbye kiss landed on my cheek like a press release. Polished, routine, and entirely devoid of meaning. I waited exactly 8 minutes after she backed out of the driveway before I got moving. First stop, the safe. Elise had never paid much attention to it, mostly because it looked like it held tax records and old warranty documents, which it did. But beneath those dusty envelopes lived my new favorite folder, the exit plan. I added a few new items that morning, photos the private investigator had emailed the night before. Carter and Elise at a rooftop restaurant, holding hands, sharing a dessert, her head on his shoulder like it belonged there. It looked romantic if you didn't know the woman in the photo had a husband. It looked like evidence if you did. I didn't flinch when I saw the timestamp. Friday night, 7:43 p.m. While I was sitting in the parking lot with a thermos of black coffee and the quiet knowledge that something had died, I scrolled down. Another image. Hotel lobby. Carter's hand low on her back. Then again, hours later, Elise in a bathrobe, his bathrobe, on a balcony with a glass of red wine. She wasn't even looking around to see if anyone might notice. That's how safe she felt. That's how untouchable she believed she was. I forwarded the photos to a secure drive and locked everything back in the safe. Then I picked up my phone. Ryan, the voice on the other end said. Morning, Nate, I replied. How's corporate law treating you? Nate and I had gone to college together. He made partner in a mid-sized firm last year and owed me for helping him ghostwrite an industry white paper that earned him half a dozen new clients. Better now that I'm not writing your articles, he chuckled. I need a favor, I said. You finally rob a bank. Worse, I said. My wife's cheating on me. With her boss. There was a pause. Then a low whistle. Damn, I need to know what I can do. Legally. Quietly. And with maximum damage control. He didn't ask for details. He just said, come in tomorrow. We'll go over options. Perfect. Step by step, it was coming together. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about closure, the kind that left a scar. But the universe? It has a sixth sense of humor. Because right around 1 p.m., my phone rang again. It was Elise. Which was odd. She never called during the day. Hey, I said, playing it cool. Her voice was rushed. Distracted. Babe, quick question. Have you seen the folder with our old mortgage papers? A beat. I almost smiled. Which one? You know, the manila one with the blue sticky note. I could have sworn I saw it on your desk last week. Oh, I said, pausing just long enough to make her nervous. I filed it away in the safe. Okay, she said. I was just, never mind. It's not urgent. Everything good? I asked. Yeah, she said too quickly. Yeah, just paperwork stuff. I'll see you tonight. She hung up before I could say goodbye. I sat there staring at the phone. She was checking. Not for mortgage documents, for evidence. Somewhere, something had spooked her. Maybe she'd seen the safe moved. Maybe guilt was finally tapping her on the shoulder. Or maybe Carter wasn't as smooth as he looked in those photos. Regardless, the timeline just got shorter. That evening, she came home carrying takeout. Thai food. Pad CEW, just the way I liked it. No celebration. No occasion. Just food. Like she was offering peace without knowing the war had already started. I watched her carefully. How was work? I asked. She shrugged. Meetings, mostly. HR's being annoying. Oh, they want us to review some ethics compliance stuff. You know, no fraternizing with coworkers, all that boring junk. I looked up from my plate. Fraternizing, huh? That's still a thing. Apparently, she said, stabbing a piece of tofu. As if adults can't make their own choices. Interesting choice of words. I nodded slowly. Well, some choices come with consequences. She looked up. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said with a slight smile. Just life advice. She held my gaze a second too long, then went back to her food. After dinner, she poured us both glasses of wine. Red. The same kind from the photo on the balcony. A test, maybe? A memory? I didn't care. You ever think about taking a break? I asked casually. She blinked. A break? Yeah. From work. From all this. Go somewhere. She leaned on the counter. Why would I need a break? Just seems like you've been carrying a lot lately, I said. She frowned. You think something's wrong? I shook my head. No. I think you're trying very hard to make sure nothing looks wrong. That shut her up for the rest of the night. When she finally went upstairs, I stayed behind. I wasn't trying to catch her anymore. I wanted her to feel the ground start to shift. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. Elise didn't ask why I stayed downstairs that night. She went to bed with a simple, "Don't stay up too late," and disappeared into the hallway like a ghost in yoga pants. The kind of ghost that haunted quietly, wrapped in secrets and scented candles. I sat on the couch long after the TV went dark, staring into the kind of silence that is weight. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the punch-a-wall, throw-a-glass sort of way. That part had burned out. What was left was something colder. Still. Focused. At 11:17 p.m., my phone vibrated. Unknown number. One text. She's done this before. 2 offices ago. Same pattern. Good luck. No name. No context. Just that. I read it 3 times before locking the screen. Carter wasn't the first. That thought didn't make it better. It made it worse. Because betrayal isn't just about the act. It's about the history. The practiced nature of it. The realization that you weren't the first stop on the heartbreak tour. You were just the most recent chump with a ring and a credit score. The next morning, Elise acted like we were starring in a toothpaste commercial. Bright smile. Fresh coffee. She even made pancakes. That wasn't her style. She's a granola and yogurt kind of woman. Sleep okay? She asked. I sipped the coffee. Sure. You. Like a baby. She nodded, flipping another pancake, and for a moment I wondered if she genuinely thought I was buying the act. That I was so wrapped up in eggs and syrup I hadn't noticed the lipstick on her soul. After breakfast, I told her I had a meeting with a client and left the house. She didn't ask what kind of client. She never did. Elise trusted that I'd always play my role. Not anymore. I wasn't meeting a client. I was meeting Nate. His office sat on the top floor of a mid-rise downtown, all steel and leather and overpriced bottled water. Dude, he said as I stepped in. You look calm. Like serial killer calm. That's the goal. We sat. He pulled out a legal pad and flipped to a fresh page. So, walk me through what you want. I want a clean break, I said. No drama. No shouting match in a kitchen. I want her to walk into a room, find her world rearranged, and realize too late that I already left the game. Nate raised an eyebrow. You're looking for a quiet war. Exactly. We spent the next hour going over logistics, shared accounts, property, liabilities. Luckily, there were no kids to complicate things, just a house, a car, and a dog that liked me better anyway. But there was one more thing. Can I get her fired? He blinked. Depends. You said it's her boss she's seeing. Yeah. I've got proof, messages, dates, photos. Their company has a strict anti-fraternization clause in leadership roles. Then you might not need to get her fired, Nate said. You just have to hand the right envelope to the right person. I nodded slowly. That's the idea. He leaned back. Ryan, I have to say, you're handling this way better than I expected. I stopped expecting loyalty from someone who can't look me in the eye for more than 10 seconds. When I got home, Elise was on the patio, typing away on her laptop, her glasses sliding down her nose like they always did when she was focused. She looked up and smiled. Hey, babe. You were gone a while. Traffic, I said. You know how it is. She nodded, then gestured to her screen. Just catching up on emails. We've got the Q2 pitch deck coming up. Carter wants to run through it on Thursday, so I might be home late. That was bold. She still thought I was in the dark. Sounds important, I said. It is, she replied, not even blinking. That night, I cooked dinner. Her favorite steak, rare, with that rosemary butter she always raved about. She looked at the plate like I just proposed all over again. Wow, she said. What's the occasion? No occasion, I said. Just wanted to remind you that I still remember what you like. The fork froze halfway to her mouth. Just for a second. But I saw it. That was the first crack. Later, as we were doing dishes, I said, I got a call from someone today. She paused. Oh, yeah. Said something weird. Said you had a pattern. Her shoulders stiffened. Barely. But it was enough. What's that supposed to mean? Apparently you've got a bit of history with coworkers. Bosses. She turned slowly. And you believe them? I held her gaze. I didn't say that. But you're asking. No, I said, drying my hands. I'm watching. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then let out a short laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Well, So this is where we're at now? Suspicion over pancakes. No, I said. This is where you are. I'm just standing nearby, waiting for gravity to do its job. She didn't reply. She just walked upstairs, slow and stiff. And in that moment, I knew she felt it. The change. I wasn't asking questions anymore. I was watching the clock. Tick. Tock. The end wasn't coming. It was already scheduled. Thursday arrived like it owed me money. Elise was up early, suitcase by the door, full of pressed blouses and lies. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving. Don't wait up, she said. I wouldn't. Because I wouldn't be there. By noon, I had executed the last few pieces of the plan. I packed my essentials, cleared out my documents, took the dog because even she knew who deserved her loyalty. By 3 p.m., I was on the road. Not running. Just relocating my dignity. But before I left, I dropped off 2 packages. One at Elise's HR department, and one at Carter's supervisor's office, marked Urgent. Confidential ethics breach contains photo evidence. Inside was everything. Dates, screenshots, calendar entries, security footage timestamps from the Rose Lake and parking lot. Oh, and a printout of their company's own no fraternization clause, helpfully highlighted. No threats. No notes. Just facts. Let the evidence do the talking. By 7 p.m., I was checked into a quiet Airbnb in the next city over, where I poured a glass of whiskey and waited for the world to catch up with what I already knew. Friday morning, my phone lit up with a string of messages. The first was from Elise. Why did I just get called into HR? What did you do? I didn't answer. Then came a voicemail. Angry. Desperate. Ryan, what is this? They have pictures. Who told you? We need to talk. No, we didn't. An hour later, Nate texted me. You started a small war. HR's suspending both of them. Elise may lose her title. Carter's under review. Well played. Then he added, she'll try to flip this on you. Be ready. I was. By the end of the day, her work laptop was deactivated and her access revoked. When she finally got home, if she dared to, she'd find my closet half empty, the ring gone from the nightstand, and a printed letter on the counter. Elise, you had options. You chose dishonesty. You chose performance. So I chose exit. I didn't scream. I didn't cheat. I didn't retaliate in the ways you feared. But I did notice. I did plan. And I made sure your consequences would be as deliberate as your decisions. Tell Carter I said goodbye. Briefly. I don't think he'll be sticking around long. Ryan. Over the next few days, her text shifted from furious to panicked. You overreacted. We weren't serious. It was just a thing. You ruined my career. That one made me laugh out loud. I ruined her career? No, Elise. You just didn't expect someone like me, the boring, dependable one, to play chess while you were busy playing dress-up at work. By Monday, I'd filed for divorce. No alimony. Nate made sure of that. Turns out evidence of workplace misconduct tanks your leverage. My departure was clean. Quiet. Like a man slipping out the back of a burning theater, unscathed, while the actors still fought for applause. The irony? Elise did call Carter her future in one of the texts I found. Turns out, he didn't even like dogs. Imagine losing your husband, your job, and your affair partner in the same week, because you couldn't keep your ego in check. Part 10. End scene. 3 months later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Elise had been demoted, not fired, though she had to transfer out of her office. HR couldn't take the legal risk of a wrongful termination lawsuit, but they could strip her title, salary, and pride. Carter was let go, or as the company put it, transitioned out quietly. No farewell party. No LinkedIn announcement. Just silence. She reached out one last time. I didn't think you had this in you. That part was almost flattering. I didn't respond. What would I even say? That betrayal doesn't always come with fireworks, but sometimes revenge does? That the quiet man who listens, pays attention, and keeps showing up, he's not a fool. He's a volcano. And one day, when the time is right, he erupts. But not with fire. With precision.